Views expressed in the videos are my observation, analysis of events, persons based on principles of astrology. It's not my intent to predict, forecast absolute outcomes, only suggest how they may unfold. Nothing is set in stone. I could be wrong, but often I'm right. My desire is not to promote fear, only inform about what we see unfolding. It is our wish to prepare our subscribers for events that could affect them, their family, their goals, and their future, to help to prepare for what you may already suspect is happening, and to send a warning shot across the bow and raise a flag of concern. Our goal is to help, not hinder, in these perilous times, to inspire and offer possible direction, and to reveal that a greater plan and purpose are behind all that is happening. Eventually, we will see a brighter day. If you would like to show your appreciation for our work on these videos or this channel, and also the Knowing Whispers channel, you can always click on the word thanks at the bottom of all the videos. Hello everybody, it's Robert Cosmar of the Astrology of Life YouTube channel, also the YouTube channel Wisdom for Those Awakening, along with the Substack publication of the same name, Wisdom for Those Awakening, where we discuss the process of spiritual awakening and conscious rebirth. Today, the title of my video is going to be, What's Wrong with the Democratic Party? I have seen many posts on many places on the internet where people are upset and angry, confused, and not understanding what it is that seems to cause the Democratic Party to not really have a sense of themselves at this point. So I'm going to take you into the transit chart and also into the progress chart of both the Democratic Party and also the Republican Party. And I'll show you why it is that the Republican Party, is what it is, and the Democratic Party is going through what they're going through. And when I realized this, I found this to be extremely fascinating, because like you, sometimes I don't get a chance to always find out astrologically what it is that I'm seeing until a later time. And this is kind of what happened here. Okay. What you're looking at here on the inside is the chart of the Democratic Party. Okay. At least it's believed to be one of the accepted charts for it. January the 8th, 1828, 12 p.m. is kind of relative because we don't know exactly what the time was. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania was the location, so we got the date, relative time, and also the location. And the problem with this is, as I've said many times on my videos, is the fact that when you don't know the time, it can be a problem. In this case, it's not going to be a big problem because I'm dealing with aspects, and the aspects reveal something about the energy, the nature, the personality of the Democratic Party, okay, and of what they can go through and have gone through as they have evolved since the time of 1828, okay. Now, there's a couple of things here in this transit chart. These are the transits out here that are very significant for what it is that you see happening to the Democratic Party. If you'll notice here, okay, in the natal chart of the Democratic Party, there's a very close opposition between Saturn and Neptune. Okay, now, to relate this to your possible experience, and I've talked about this off and on, Neptune relates to our higher conscious self, our plan for evolution. Saturn is very much tied into our ego and our belief structure, or what we think to be true. Okay? The belief structure, the foundation, okay, of our identity. This aspect makes them extremely vulnerable throughout the life of the party whenever there's aspects by transit to these 2 points of creating some real concern, uncertainty, a sense of abandoning their focus, a loss of identity, All of these things. Neptune and Saturn, when they're in hard aspect, are very difficult because what you thought you were doing, who you thought you were, all of a sudden vanished. And you're kind of left with this empty, abandoned feeling. And of course, this is what we're seeing going on, in a sense, with the Democratic Party. They don't know what to do. Okay? And the reality of it is that they have to find something. Okay? If they are to continue, they have to find something of a higher order of things for them to move forward on. They need not just inspiration, they need a revelation of how to move forward with what is going on, or to come to understand and to accept what is going on, if that be the case. Okay? So again, you'll notice over here, this has already happened. Neptune opposing the moon right here. Here's Neptune over here. Okay, and again, this is in the 12th house, okay, and in the 6th house. All right, in astrology, you know, the 12th house and the 6th house, if this is exactly where this occurred, is a very vulnerable place. You become confused, disoriented. You may think that you're losing your mind, possibly in some situations, although that's not necessarily the case. All right. But the important thing here to understand, and again, I want to remind you, you can't really count on these houses because we don't know what the exact time was, but the aspects we can. Neptune is opposing that moon. It's already separated, all right? Saturn is going to oppose that moon, all right? So again, you have the same energy of Neptune and Saturn, extreme vulnerability, losing your focus, being vulnerable, not knowing what to do. You're at wit's end. Your mind cannot think of what is the next, step to take. So all of this energy, okay, is what is going on within the structure of the Democratic Party. And it explains perfectly well why it is that they seem to be unable to come together as a unified group and to devise a plan to either stop or to do whatever they think they can do to prevent what's going on, okay? Or to learn to deal with it in a different way, okay? You also see down here that Pluto, okay, is already, and again, it's already squared the north and the south node. And of course, the north and south node have to do with relationships. Okay, and again, this is the situation of turmoil within the party itself, within the various factions of it, within the Democratic Party as a whole. Okay, and from an astrological perspective, of course, in terms of how I view this is all very karmic. This is something that was ordained. This is something that is fated. Okay, like everything else that you see going on right now, it is something which is fated, ordained. Okay, and that you have a choice to make. And that choice is very simple. You either choose to embrace the fear, the anxiety, the doubt, the hatred. All right, that'll take you in one direction. Or you have come to realize that you need to relinquish your fear and to reach deeper within inside of yourself to discover the answer for you. Okay, because when you discover what the answer is for you, you also assist in others who are looking to discover for themselves what is the truth for them and what is the higher truth of all this. Why is this happening? Okay, it was such an emotional roller coaster after Kamala Harris came in, the way she put down Trump, put him in his place in the debate, then the Democratic National Convention, okay, then the election, and then, oh my God, okay. This is another symbol of what happens with Neptune and Saturn, because you can get overconfident. You think that you know, okay. When you encounter Neptune opposing Saturn, your core beliefs begin to fall apart. And you have to make a decision whether or not you will still trust in yourself, believe in the universe, or whether or not you're going to fall to pieces. Okay? It is a very critical point in your evolution. If you're experiencing, and some of you that are my age, let's say maybe 67 on through 75, something like that, you're probably dealing with Neptune opposing Saturn, which is why you're feeling what you're feeling right now. Okay, about what you see happening politically. All right. The problem with our reaction to the way that the election went is that it was totally unexpected, because we had built such a feeling of confidence in our emotions. Okay, have you ever had such positive feelings in your emotions and you were so certain that you were going to win or you were going to achieve something, and then all of a sudden in the last moment something happened beyond your ability to comprehend, and all those hopes and wishes went to naught? This is what Neptune interacting with Saturn is all about. Okay, and again, as I mentioned, the opposition here of Neptune and Saturn will be coming along here to the moon in the Democratic Party's chart is not going to make it any easier for them to decide what to do. They are being put on hold for a higher purpose. Okay? And I know how difficult this is for probably the vast majority of my subscribers to understand and swallow this. I wish there was an easy way for me to explain to you in these videos why this is occurring, why this is happening, and this is one of the reasons why I've started the weekly Wisdom for Those Awakening live streams, because in those live streams what I'm doing is essentially teaching you the foundations for conscious rebirth. Okay, talking about your feelings, your emotions, your consciousness, your mind, your memory, and all these things, and how they impact how you experience life and why you're feeling the way that you're doing. Because that's the way to deal with what's happening. In particular, learning how to deal with fear is one of the prime targets, so to speak, that I look at when I do these live streams. There is a lot of rich information, or what I call conscious knowledge or wisdom, in those videos that are trying to help you to get comfortable with your feelings, with your emotions, with your mindset, and to show you that there is, a way to cope. And in a way, there's a way to overcome as well, if you are dedicated to what it is that's being suggested within those particular live stream videos. Okay? So let's move forward here, and I think one thing else that I'll talk about here as well before I leave. You can see here that Neptune is coming into a square of Mercury. Okay, right here. Here's Mercury in the Democratic Party chart. Here is Neptune. So there is a lot of confusion, disorientation. You could say, hopefully it doesn't get to the point where it's absolute panic mode and they just toss out the Democratic Party, but maybe they need to evolve and become something new. So again, the point being here is that this Neptune-Saturn energy is very disruptive to a well-fortified ego, okay, or their outward appearance in terms of an organization. All right, now, to compound this issue that I've been talking about here, we're going to take a look at the secondary progressions of the Democratic Party. And this, too, is quite startling. You'll notice up here that the progressed Neptune, all right, is opposing the natal Saturn. Okay? And again, we're talking about the same problem here. All right? We're talking about something unexpected occurring that shakes the identity, the ego of an organization or a person, if this was a person, so that they feel vulnerable. They feel like they're on an ocean in a boat with no paddle. Okay? And they simply have to trust how it's going to play out. All right, because somewhere in the process of this dissolving of this identity that has been built up and embraced, if the person is of a surrendered quality and that they do grasp the concept of trusting and allowing things to reveal themselves, at some point the direction that they need to take and go will be revealed, because that's part of the gift of Neptune as well. It is also a planet that represents inspiration, higher states of consciousness. Okay, but you can see that it's very close here. Neptune by progression is at 16 degrees of Capricorn, and Saturn by natal position is at 16 degrees of Cancer. All right, so planets that are in close aspect, the effect is more dramatic. It becomes much more obvious what they're experiencing. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, because of the fact we don't know for certain what the exact time was, we can't talk about the ascendant and the midheaven here, with really. We also have the situation by progression here. It's already gone past that, so the effect of this, because it's separating from the exactness of the nodes, is debatable. Okay, but it could still have an impact upon the Democratic Party as a whole. All right, Uranus, the unexpected, the shock, so to speak, from the election going on. Saturn also, okay, it's in an opposition, opposing Uranus, another one of those, heavy aspects that creates a lot of disturbance in terms of your confidence. Okay, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all you really have to say about this particular situation of the Democratic Party. They cannot help themselves but to feel like they are in limbo. Okay? And how they will move beyond this is debatable. Whether they will become inspired consciously and a leader will come forth that has the feeling of a strong voice, or will they have to totally disband and become something totally new and different because they realize that they can't stand alone only on all their platform? This is something that I'm sure probably has been discussed, many times amongst them as well. So, not an easy time. Not an easy time for those who voted, Democratic, and for those that are hoping that something's going to automatically happen. And for those that are absolutely certain within themselves that what is happening is totally wrong, it can't happen, and, how dare Trump be president, and how dare the Republican MAGA party be in power. Okay, I can tell you this. For your own health and well-being, for your own spiritual conscious growth and evolution, you need to get out of that mindset. Because things happen because they're supposed to happen. And emotionally, we may not like them, but they don't happen unless they are ordained. They are fated, okay, for a higher purpose. And the truth of the matter is, we don't all know the higher purpose of what's going on, okay? I feel that there are some, that may have a little more clarity, but even in that clarity, it really boils down to just an elevated speculation. All right. This is one of the reasons why, what I'm telling you right now, that I find myself shifting from just doing the astrology to talking about conscious knowledge, higher conscious awareness. Because for those of you that are beginning to be awake, or those of you that maybe have been awake for a while, you need to understand the sea that you are to navigate in. Okay? For most people, even those that have been awake for a while, their higher conscious self is still a mystery. That relationship is still a mystery. Okay? The reason it is a mystery is because you haven't yet reached that point of transcending certain aspects of your mind, your emotions, your memory, and your imagination. Okay? You haven't had that circumstance evolved to that point. So you have on the one hand an intuition, okay, that you may be aware of and that you may listen to, but maybe you feel like you're stuck and you're not moving further. You can't shake the fear, okay? To shake the fear, all right, to shake the negativity, to see things from a much higher plane, you have to rise consciously above your mind, your emotions, your imagination, and your memory. These are the things that I call conscious knowledge, the things that I talk about in this live stream, to try to give you a platform that your mind can understand what happens as you further awaken consciously within inside of yourself. Okay? All the diagrams that I show in these particular live streams are things that I've been given to try to give me a sense of the landscape of the pathway beyond the physical plane into the astral plane, and and even further into your higher self. So I'm compelled by my guidance and my higher self. I know that probably there are many that would like to see more astrology videos, all right? But my guidance is telling me I have to teach these things. This is what my purpose is at this point, along with doing the occasional astrology like this, all right? Astrology can enlighten you to many things, but what it cannot do is that it cannot make you consciously evolve. It may show when you're going to consciously evolve, but no matter how long you study it, and no matter how long you practice it, astrology is still lacking in its ability to totally transform a person spiritually. Not that it can't through some circumstance of your guidance and your higher self, but most likely it's not going to necessarily happen that way. Okay? You're going to have to also make a commitment to meditation, to inner working, and once you know, okay, once you've experienced your higher self, that relationship, that inner teacher that many talk about, at that point, you don't need me or anybody to tell you what the truth is for you, what your purpose is for you, okay, what you should and shouldn't do. It's not our right to do something like that, all right? Once you have made that inner connection, and you know it, because you will know it, okay, then you begin the journey on the next leg of going home to yourself. Okay, so keep that in mind. I know that there are some that probably would rather see me do a lot of videos, but I know that's not the next step in my evolution, is that I have to share with you what I'm given, what I experience, and for that reason I have the other channel, the Wisdom for Those Awakening, okay, where you can come over and listen to videos if you want to. You can also ask questions, and like I said, most of these, just about every one of the live streams that I do will be probably on both channels. I'll put a link to it, okay, also for the Wisdom for Those Awakening, but right now I'm putting these onto the Astrology of Life channel at this point, because I want to show you what you're missing, okay, and how this can help you through all this stuff that you're going on, because it isn't pretty and it's not going to get pretty. Okay? All right, let's go to the Republican Party and take a look at their chart. March the 20th, 1854, 6:30 p.m., Ripon, Wisconsin. Now, we have a pretty reliable resource here for 6:30 p.m., so we can do a little bit more here with the chart. Okay? This chart is more favorable by aspect to the Republican Party, obviously, than it is, would be to the Democrats. But it's not perfect, because there's a lot of things here, too, going on with Neptune, with Pluto. You can see here in this transit that there's a very close aspect to the sun, the leadership of Neptune. How many times have we done videos and talked about Donald Trump and this Neptune influence, this disruptive, chaotic energy that causes fear to come to the surface? Okay. What is less known and understood is that it's also the higher conscious purpose of the universe that's come into play. Okay? Pluto squaring Pluto. It's a separated aspect, but it's still within orb. Okay? Transformation. I don't think anybody doubts that the Republican Party, which has kind of become the MAGA Trump Party, has not gone through, massive transformation of sort. Okay? Transiting Saturn squaring the moon here. Okay? Is a very depressed energy. Okay? Despite the fact that the Republican Party is all MAGAfied now and everything, they still have their anxiety and their worry about what's going on. They do not know necessarily to the depth of what Trump does, what he's wanting to do. Okay, so they still have their anxiety as well. Okay, much as, we do. Uranus here is getting close to opposing Saturn. Again, Saturn being the structure, the old Republican Party. Uranus by transit is coming close to that. Okay, which is going to create more change. Okay, these Republican and Democratic parties, in the future are not going to be the same. They're going to be different. In fact, the hope would be that they come together and formulate something that's more reasonable and more highly evolved than what we see going on right now. Because what's going on right now is that they're both kind of having these emotional pissing matches. Okay? And the Republicans, of course, are winning. All right? And again, when you hear that, you go, oh no, okay? What you have to keep in mind and understand about everything you see happening is that there is a higher purpose for it. Okay? Emotionally, it will be very difficult for you to accept some of the things that you see happening. Okay? And if you are wrestling with it in your mind and your emotions, you're really going to suffer for it. This, again, is why I have been trying to slowly encourage my subscribers and members. You need to pay more attention consciously to yourself, to go within and to discover what it is. Okay, what are your fears? Okay, what is it that's really going on with you? And making connection with your higher self and guidance and getting some help. Okay, and then seeing how that affects your life. Because really the proof in the pudding is this. I can talk about this all day, but unless you have the experience of your higher self, unless you know the inner teacher, unless you've experienced them, I'm just talking. Okay? You'd have a hard time believing what I'm saying, and I know that. Okay? And that's okay. All right? Everybody has a right to be who they are, where they're at, and it's all perfect for where you are, even though my saying that doesn't necessarily make you feel any more comfortable. Okay, and you won't recognize the truth of that unless you establish this relationship by yourself. Okay, which is the way that it has to be. Okay, other things here to be understood. Neptune opposing the ascendant. Okay, here's Neptune. It's moving towards, okay, an opposition here by transit. Again, the point to be taken here is that the Republican Party is confused. Okay, they're doing what they're told. That's how vulnerable they are. All right, Trump is in charge. Elon Musk is in charge. Okay, and unfortunately, the news, as I've mentioned many times, the news is really, the truth of it is they're in it to make money. So whatever they can put out there that is going to arouse excitement, emotion, and stuff, that's what they're going to put out there. Okay, they want to push buttons. But in the long run, they're not serving your higher conscious growth, your inner healing. They're not. Okay? That's why I've cut back. CJ and I have cut back tremendously on watching network news. Because I do this type of work, I have to look at charts and I have to survey what's going on to keep abreast of what is actually happening. And fortunately, I'm able to deal with it, but at times not so well. Okay, that's the human way of having to deal with this type of thing. All right, let's go forward here a little bit. All right, these are the progressions. Again, the difference between transits and progressions are longer lasting. They signify a long lasting change in behavior. Transits, much shorter time, although they can be as profound as secondary progressions. You know, there's nothing simple about Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, or even Saturn in a hard aspect by transit. Okay, they can be just as gnarly as a progression. All right, but you can see things over here that are reflective in the transits. Okay, and you always look for the degree placement because these move so slowly. Okay, so absolutely slowly. All right, 17 minutes separation. The progressed moon conjuncted the sun. For me, this kind of symbolizes the Republican Party winning the election. It was a new beginning for them, or a new opportunity. Okay. As you go down through here, again, I'm looking for very close aspects. Okay. Venus trining the moon. It's separated, which means that probably the honeymoon situation is starting to fade off. All right. But again, this is kind of a symbol of pleasure that things have, turned out the way they had hoped that they would. Okay. But you also have indications here of, a slight depression. Saturn here has yet to come into an opposition to the moon. It will take quite a long time for that to happen. And I won't touch on that because I don't think there's probably enough influence on that. But going here to the second one, looking for very close aspects here. Okay, I'm going down through here. All right, here is an aspect. It's already separated, but it's fairly close, of your progressed ascendant sextiling Uranus. Again, another confirmation of change. Maybe unexpected change. It's hard to say whether or not, even though Trump said he believed he would win anyhow, and we're kind of still wondering what Elon Musk may have done. Unexpected change. Okay? Probably even more prophetic is here. The progressed midheaven conjuncts the moon. Okay? And you can see right down here. Here's the moon. Here's the progressed midheaven. Okay? Again, the moon dealing with the public. Midheaven dealing with their goals, ambitions, and their the way they're trying to make things happen. A much better combination of aspects in the chart of the Republican Party, although Neptune does play a strong role in here in terms of their self-confidence. They've kind of sold out to Trump and to Musk, so they're going to have a issue of confidence. They are kind of puppets, and they're not in charge. They're doing what they're told. Okay, so again, the big thing to take out of this video in particular, it goes into what I was saying earlier about Saturn and Neptune in the chart of the Democratic Party. It's why that they are not able to move forward with a defense against what you see happening. And for those who may be anxious, more anxious because of me telling them that, what you have to understand is that all of this is happening because the universe is allowing it, because this is a predestined evolutionary step that mankind is taking. And either you are joining in with that step or you are resisting that step. Okay? There's many, many, many things to come that won't be pleasant, and as hard as it is to say this, you can take a look at history. There are many who like to think that there is a God sitting on a throne somewhere whose only purpose is our well-being, our happiness, our joy. The reality of it is this: World War I, World War II, Vietnam, the Ukraine. Okay? These things are allowed to happen. They were allowed to happen. We know this. Okay? Because we have a choice and a freedom. We can either choose to follow a higher path within ourselves consciously, or we can allow our ego, our mind, our emotions, and our imaginations run amok and fear. Right? That's the two things that are on the fence post right now. Okay? This is what everybody in the world is having to deal with and to have to answer. All right? And there will be many, many changes moving forward, okay, into the future. Changes in religion, changes in ideas about God, changes in ideas about light and darkness, good and evil. All of these things are going through a higher conscious revolution, right? And I know that for a lot, even for aware souls, this is very difficult to grasp. And again, I'm going to go back to this. It's why I'm doing the live streams, the Wisdom for Those Awakening live streams every Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. It's to help you to grapple with and understand, okay, what is happening, why is it happening, and how to cope and overcome in it. Okay, it's important. It's extremely important, and probably down the road it'll be the vast majority of the work that I actually do. And how long I'll continue to do astrology like this, I really don't know. It's something that comes and goes, but the teaching definitely is a big part of me, and sharing those moments when I get stuff from my guidance and stuff, which is what goes on to the Substack platform mostly, but I also post it in the Wisdom for Those Awakening as well. So if you are wanting some help in that particular area of being able to cope with and comprehend what's happening, please consider coming over on Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m. I don't think that you'll be disappointed. Okay? All right. For those of you that have been with me forever, those of you that are members, subscribers, thank you so much. Those that do make donations, thank you so much. I know some of you have had to stop doing that because of concerns that you have or financial obligations, and you're still welcome to come and watch and participate and communicate with us. There's the work is about helping us to evolve, to elevate us consciously. That's what really matters. That's what'll help, to heal the situation that humanity is in. And if we don't find that, okay, then humanity is going to devolve into its worst behaviors. And we don't want that to happen. Okay, from the love of my life, CJ, my spiritual partner, best friend, love of my life. Okay, I want to thank you. We want to thank you. Keep in mind that she also has 2 Substack publications. One's called CJ's World, and the other one's called CJ's Whispers of Knowing. And she would love to have you visit that if you would. And I will be in touch. I'll see you if you're with me on Saturday from 10 to 11 Eastern Daylight Time. We're going to be talking on conscious knowledge. What is conscious knowledge? How do you access your conscious knowledge? What's the reason for it? What's the purpose of it? Okay, all of that's going to be covered Saturday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And I'll be broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, and also on LinkedIn. Okay? Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great week.